there are two states, the human conscious and the pure consciousness. The human conscious, which is often misrepresented by a term called human consciousness, can be thought of as a state that encompasses all the possibilities of the human dimension. This means all the bodies, minds, and souls. In this state, all the permutations and combinations of the bodies, minds, and souls, they coexist either in potential or in expressed form across space and time. And the interesting thing is, even with all the possibilities, all the permutations and combinations of the human dimension, the human conscious is insignificant. It's barely noticeable, is hardly matter, and hardly matters. And this is why it is important for us to keep the human conscious as a term separate from the pure consciousness. On the other hand, the term the pure consciousness indicates a stateless state beyond all the possible states, in whose massive womb exists the human conscious with all its possibilities, with all its permutations and combinations and potential or expressed form, as almost existent as an insignificant non-entity. Now that this distinction may be slightly clearer, you may recognize that the states of human conscious, the states of bodies, minds, and souls, they cannot be called as the states of the pure consciousness, because the entire human dimension, the entire human conscious is too insignificant. It's hardly, barely noticeable. And that these states of bodies, minds, and souls, they can be called as altered states of the human conscious. And they're temporary, they arise on their own, and they vanish on their own. And this means it doesn't really matter whether it is a state of bliss or a state of suffering in the human dimension, in the human conscious. Both of these, they will appear on their own, they'll stay for a while, and they'll disappear on their own, whether you have any spiritual training or you have no spiritual training. Here's a great news for someone who's stuck in suffering, that this state of suffering is an altered state of the human conscious, just like this idea that you think you are, who is stuck in suffering, is also temporary and altered state of the human conscious. And both of them, the temporary suffering and the temporary you that you think you are, they will both disappear very soon, even if you don't want them to, even if you have zero spiritual training. And there is one more thing that it indicates, and that is, it doesn't matter which altered state of the human conscious, body, mind, soul we're talking about here. None of these states indicate the ultimate spiritual emancipation. An altered state of the human conscious offers temporary relaxation, and this is why a lot of people get drawn to it. It's like the kind of relaxation you feel when you empty your constipated stomach, or the kind of relaxation or fulfillment you feel when you fill your empty stomach. It stays that way for a while, and then this relaxation is gone. A pill, a pendant, a technique, a sermon, a meditation, a breathing technique, a healing technique, a crystal, they're all okay, as they do have the limited power to alter the state of your human conscious temporarily, and so they do have the power to offer limited temporary relief. But when you try to use all of these for the ultimate spiritual emancipation, that's a spiritual tragedy. I find it fascinating that how a tiny drop can hide the entire ocean for a lot. And if someone can see the drop, it is clear that this person is not biologically blind, but this person is intellectually blind, intellectually compromised. And intellectual blindness is not something we are born with, it is something we learn, we copy from people around us. Think about it, how a tiny drop can hide the vast ocean. How can the human conscious, the human dimension, the bodies, the minds, the souls, and the physical worlds, how can they hide the pure consciousness when the human conscious exists within the pure consciousness? When the human conscious is made up of the pure consciousness, when the human conscious is the pure consciousness. The pure consciousness does not and cannot hide. The funny thing about the spiritual hide and seek that the spiritual teachers, the spiritual seekers, they play at the fancy spiritual retreats is that what they're seeking, with their eyes tight shut, mind focused, is staring them right in their face, is right next to them and even closer. And most of the times, for the ultimate spiritual emancipation, all you gotta do is relax your eyelid and wink.